Hey y'all, Rico here. Perched behind me, our favorite Cummins swap crew cab Chevy. Now you haven't seen this truck for a while because, well, it's been broke down. Let me give you a little backstory. Memorial Day weekend, our group went to Bedford, Kentucky, Dirty Turtle Off-Road Park. And I drove this truck. Just finished it, all excited, ready to tow with it. Had the gooseneck behind it with the YJ and somebody side by side, I can't remember now. Anyway, headed for there, got about an hour and a half into the trip, and when you put the transmission in fifth gear, it started knocking, and then the knocking turned into a grinding, and it just got louder, and I'm like, this is not good. So we pulled over in a rest stop, surveyed the situation, looked where we were at. It was just as far to go to Bedford as it was to turn around and go back home. So you know what, screw it, we're going to the park. If we don't make it, everybody else can go to the park, and I'll tow this garbage to the park and worry about it there. Well, we made it, not using fifth gear, but the drivetrain was not happy. And I brought it back and I parked it because honestly, I just didn't have the time or the money to fix it. Well, now it's time to tear into this thing and find out what's wrong, find out what we need to order, and go from there. I have a hunch it may be the notorious NV4500 fifth gear nut. For those of you that don't know, fifth gear is on the back side of this transmission and is held on by a nut that looks similar to a Dana 60 or Dana 44 spindle nut. Well, what can happen when you have the high torque of a diesel engine or even a decent big block? In fact, a stock Cummins in a Dodge will do the same thing. It will actually unthread that nut, and when it does that, fifth gear can slide back and not engage. My theory is the nut's backed off enough to where that clicking we're hearing is that gear rattling around. And talking with another buddy of mine, when that backs off, it lets that shaft drop. That could give you a bearing growl. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the drive shafts in the transfer case out of the way. You don't need to watch that. I'll do that off camera. Then we're going to kind of systematically pull one of the PTO covers off, check the oil, make sure there's no sparklies in it or no big chunks. If we have big chunks, it's game over. This thing's coming out, and I'm going to send it to a buddy of mine that's got a transmission shop, and we'll work something out from there. If that checks out okay, then we're going to pull the back section off the transmission and we're going to check that nut. If the nut's loose, then we'll order a replacement and we'll torque it properly, show you all how to do that. And if everything else checks out good, bam, Bob's your uncle. So without any more further to do, I'm going to get under there, get all that taken care of, and I'll bring you back when I'm ready to show you what's going on underneath. So here we go. I know I originally told you that I was going to drain the oil first and then decide which way to go, but I wanted to show you what we found out when we pulled the transfer case. If you look up in here, the shaft, you may or may not be able to see, there is a 4-prong nut, looks very similar to a spindle nut on like a Dana 44 or Dana 60 front end. That is the infamous fifth gear nut that comes loose. Unfortunately, our nut is tight, so that is not the problem. However, I suspect there may still be a problem in this back section, but I'm not going to deviate 100% from our original plan. We're still going to drain the oil out, see if there's anything going on in the front section, and then we'll go from there. But I wanted to show you, turns out this has more room than I originally remembered. Now we got the transfer case off, we can clearly see the nut. The nut is tight, the gear's tight, so unfortunately that's not our problem. But let's dive into it a little further and see what actually is our problem. We're going to pull the power takeoff cover off and hope that no big chunks fall out, because if they do, that's going to be bad. Drain pan underneath. There's our power takeoff cover. Start spinning bolts out. as planned. God. Okay. We're just going to let that drain out of there like that. Guess we should have pulled the very bottom bolt out, huh? Hey, those holes go all the way through, dumbass. Worst part is I knew that. Just not concentrating. Floor looks like a triple homicide now. Cover's off. Look. No chunks. Really looks pretty clean in there. I don't feel nothing. No chunks fell out. Okay, here's the deal. I'm not seeing anything wrong with this transmission. I'm beginning to suspect problems in the transfer case. And I'm going to go there next. I'm not going to tear this transmission any farther apart than I have to. I'm just not seeing anything wrong with it. Fifth gear nut's tight. I drained the oil out of it. It's nice and clean, which kind of irritates me because that oil is not cheap, but oh well, that's the brakes. So I'm going to drag that transfer case out from under there. I'm going to go to Napa and get some stuff to clean up this triple homicide out from under this truck, and that's where we're going to go next. Rip into that transfer case and see what's going on with it. Thought this was going to be a fifth gear NV4500 video. Nope. Turns out this is going to be something in that transfer case went bad to where it would pull in fourth gear but not fifth. So I don't know. This is why we're doing this. This is how it goes. So yeah, I'm gonna run to Napa real quick. When I come back, we're going to get into that transfer case. Okay, we're still in the process of diagnosing the drivetrain problem we're having on our Cummins swap square body. Still trying to get to the bottom of what was causing that fifth gear knock. We suspect the problem was in the transfer case. So I'm going to bring the transfer case up here, put it on the bench. We're going to do an autopsy and figure out what's going on with this truck. Gee, Mr. Chiropractor, I can't understand why my back's junk. Yeah?
Good.
Figure out what's wrong with this transfer case. Trying to figure out what's wrong with this transfer case. Oh man, that's not.
What's that out?
This. That ain't right. Yeah, that probably shouldn't come out that hard. Okay. Smoked. Front bearing. Smoked that bearing. Case, yeah, this thing's garbage. We're not saving that. It smoked that thrust bearing. This is golded. Garbage. But we found the problem. We found the problem, kids. I don't know if you can, how well you can, can't see where the shit if I drop it. I don't know how well you can see that, but that is one of the thrust bearings on, this is the input for the transfer case, and that thrust bearing went, it had oil, just a bad bearing. Just golded to shit. Well, there you have it. We found out our problem. Turns out it wasn't the transmission at all. It's actually the transfer case, which is disappointing because I thought for sure that we had a fifth gear problem. Oh, well, sometimes you misdiagnose stuff, but it's a good thing because that transfer case isn't that expensive. I was really hoping that it wasn't the input gear tore up because they make two different versions of this transfer case. A 27 spline input for the Turbo 350 and 700 R4, and the 32 spline for the Turbo 400 and the SM 465, which also has the same 32 spline output as the NV 4500 in this truck. What I was getting at is you can put the 32 spline input in a 27 case. You just got to do some swapping around. But since that's junk, we can't. And first I thought, well, I'll just buy a new 32 spline gear and rebuild this one, but upon further investigation, it's actually ate into the front of the case when that thrust bearing went bad. So this is junk. It's spare parts now, which is unfortunate because the rest of the case is in pretty good shape. Had oil in it. The shift pads are in good shape, which leads me, and the rest of the bearings were in good shape, which leads me to believe somebody's been in here before. It's been at least repaired, maybe not rebuilt, and I'm going to say either that was a bearing that was on its way out that got missed, or it was just simply a crappy Chinese bearing, and here we are. But at the end of the day, we made the right decision towing it home, because it would not have made it the rest of the way. Big thank you to all my crew for getting that thing back. It turned the trip into a little bit of a debacle. Nobody brought back what they originally took there, but that's what this group does. We just figure it out and we make the best of it. So, speaking of figuring out and making the best of it, I'm going to go transfer case shopping. Not a very informative video, I know, not much how-to, but it did show you that sometimes you just got to get in there and tear stuff apart and find what the problem was. Sadly, had I taken this thing in to a shop and told them that, you know, hey, it's got a noise in 5th gear, they would have took the same tunnel vision approach that I did and thought, okay, you know, you got the notorious 5th gear nut backed off, you're going to need this, going to cost this much. I can't fault them because I did the same thing. But, however, sometimes I envy people that don't have a history in this stuff, because if you don't know, you're just going to go in there and start taking bolts out until you find the problem. That's what I should have done. Shouldn't have hit it with the gloom and doom approach. Should have pulled the transfer case off, looked at that nut, go, okay, that's fine, stop there, went working on the transfer case. It is what it is. With that being said, please like, comment, subscribe, share this video if you think it'll help somebody out. Comment down below if you've got anything to add, and I'll let you know when we get a replacement transfer case. We'll get this baby back on the road. I'll catch you later.